Hi, everybody.
All right.
Welcome to today's discussion on Indonesia. How many, wasn't looking when you said how many of you watched the video. Okay, I thought the video was really good. It added more information to what was presented in the article. I did look up information about the new president, which I have put up here. The new president is Prabowo Subianto Jojo Hadid Kusumo. And he is going by the name Prabowo.
I like that better.
It's easier.
Yeah.
He is a different party, from the former president, Jokowi, but he was supported by Jokowi. He was Jokowi's defense minister. He has promised to continue the former president's policies of non-alignment. He was the former defense minister. He has a reputation for supporting extremist Islamic elements. He was a former army general. He did lead attacks in East Timor and against the ethnic Chinese.
He has a history of supporting the jihadists in the outer islands.
It said extremist and Islamic elements.
Okay.
Okay? He has led attacks as a general on East Timor and against the ethnic Chinese in Indonesia. You need to realize that the ethnic Chinese are a large portion of Indonesia's population. He also favors the strongman principle, which could mean trouble for democracy in the future. And all of this is courtesy of an article on the Vox website, VOX. So I just wanted to let you know what the new president is like, where he's coming from, and what his possible positions may be. So I think the first thing we need to understand is, do you all know where Indonesia is?
Mhm.
Anyone who does not? They had a map.
Yeah, it's out there.
You know, geography is important, especially in this case. So you might want to pull out your map, which is in your Great Decisions book, somewhere in chapter 3.
Oh, you mean a big map?
I mean the big map, geopolitical.
There was a map in chapter 6.
Yes, there is a map in chapter 6.
So what map do you want?
But if you look at the world map, the pull-out one, this one. Okay. Can you all find Indonesia on here? Yeah, okay, tell me why it's important. Geopolitically, why is this an important country?
It's close to China.
It's close to China. It's a trade center. Traffic has to go through Indonesia to get from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So it is a trade center. Notice how close it is to Singapore, which is a major port. Okay. On the way to Shanghai and on the way to Hong Kong. So you need to remember that this is a very important location.
Does oil pass through there? By there?
Oil is mined there.
But to answer your question, most oil from the Middle East has
goes, yes, goes through the Malacca Strait.
Thank you.
And that is why it is a major trade center. One thing the movie pointed out is that by 2045, they expect Indonesia to be in the top 4 countries economically.
I did some research
Yeah.
and it shows that on a purchasing power parity basis, it's already 7th largest.
The 7
I was surprised, that's on a GDP basis.
Mhm.
And per capita wise, 16, 17,000. 16%. Better than home.
It is doing well economically.
But it's not really a tourism.
No
What?
places don't have to be important because of tourism.
I know, but I mean, a lot of
Right.
places do want to build up that particular industry, but you never hear of anybody saying, yeah, I'm going to Indonesia.
Well, Bali-
But they go to
Bali.
Bali all the
They
time.
do, that's true.
Bali.
Always, everybody wants to.
My
go to Bali.
sister and her husband went to Bali to do snorkeling. So Bali is really big in terms of tourism.
But it's very different. Indonesians largely Islamic. The Bali. Okay, the country of Indonesia is the largest Muslim population of any country in the world. It's largely Muslim. Indonesia is totally Hindu.
Bali is
I'm sorry, Bali is
totally,
totally Hindu.
Bali is
I'm an old guy.
Muslim, yes. Um,
Was it a good place to visit?
Bali was okay. Yeah, I got along with that much. Every day we had to take a long bus ride to do something. Not that it was a long way to go, but it was slow. I got tired of that. But I would, I enjoyed being at the resort we were at. Yeah, I would go.
Mary Ann?
In the essay, it says, right now, Indonesia is the 4th most populous country.
Yes.
What are the top 3?
China, India,
United
and the
States.
United States, I think.
And that's what I wonder, because what about Russia?
They're small.
140 million.
Yeah,
Pakistan has 45 million in the US.
Okay, they've got lots of land, but not so many people.
right.
Okay.
And a lot of that land is permafrost and there are
Right, right.
Siberian, yeah, it's a subarctic economy, which means you've got a lot of reindeer herding and things like that. From left to right, it's got,
Left to right.
yeah, it is big. So, and they are moving their capital to Borneo. Their new capital, I did find a name for it, Nusantara is going to be its name. But I think it was oh yes, it was the movie that pointed out that traffic issues, flooding, access to water, and land sinking are the reasons why they're going to be moving the capital. Jakarta just can't handle it anymore. It can't grow. It's running out of water. It's being flooded. Can we understand flooding? And then talk to Texas and Florida about flooding right now. So we've got these changes that are expected in the economy.
I think it makes a place for anybody else. Jakarta is the second largest metro area in the world.
It could be.
What's number one?
Well, I read it, and I could be wrong,
Shanghai.
but Java has more population than all of Russia.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
What city is number one? Is that Mexico City or
Most people say Tokyo is the largest.
Tokyo?
I thought Shanghai would be.
Shanghai
Wow.
is
I was in Sao Paulo. You couldn't believe how many. Yeah.
But that's a very bold thing for a country to do this happen. You know, a lot of countries just wouldn't get around to that, couldn't. So that will spur the economy probably for the next decade.
Good
Well,
point.
we floated that idea many times.
Right, so we could, but we choose not to.
And, how did it work out? Was it Mexico that was?
Brazil. And Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan.
Didn't work out.
Okay, in 2024, Tokyo is number one. Go back, go back, go back.
What are you on?
Tokyo, the largest cities by population.
Oh, okay.
Tokyo, Delhi, India, Shanghai, China, Dhaka, Bangladesh, Sao Paulo, Cairo, Mexico City, Beijing, Mumbai, and Osaka are the top 10.
And so New York City's not in there.
New York City is not in there. No, and neither was Jakarta. Even the top 20 do not include an American city, nor do they include Jakarta. I don't see an American city in the top 30, nor do I see Jakarta in the top 30.
Wow. I'd have never guessed that.
So, yeah. But you can look, of course, the world's information source any more than that. So why is this country worth a chapter in the Great Decisions discussion program? Resources,
Population,
location, population,
demographics,
demographics.
I never read.
because they're young. They're much younger, the median age is much younger, and that's real important, especially since they're the fourth largest country in the world.
In terms of a growing economy, a younger population means they have a chance to become richer before their population becomes old.
But what about the Islamic implications? Predominantly.
Are they Shia or Sunni?
And, yeah, most of the world is Sunni. There may be some Shia, but I would not expect Indonesia to be a Shia.
Have they chosen to become invisible?
Good question.
What is to become invisible?
Why have they chosen to be invisible? Might be moving out of that. I mean, I think that was before, because they want to be neutral. But, you know, they didn't want to align Cold War. But I think now maybe they're moving away from that.
I don't know.
Did
He's
they,
promised to continue the former policies of non-alignment.
Did they quell the insurgency?
The former president so far has, I think, done that. Whether the new president will continue that remains to be seen. He's just taken over. He's been president. Well, he was elected. I don't know if he's been elected, but he was elected in February. And it was an overwhelming majority, so there was not a runoff election in June, which is what this article in Fox said.
One of the things in the history, we always do it, but Smyrna like to play the East against the West, so they get resources from both by being non-aligned. And the U.S. gets pissed off about it. I don't know about China, but I think in the book, I think they try to whitewash any CIA involvement with the government at Smyrna's departure. I think other people have read more about that than us. Sukarno was the first head of government for about a third of a century. And then the next guy, Suharto,
Which is
Pointed out
stability.
that a big portion of that money goes right into the dictator.
So they technically have only had a democracy since Suharto was and they ousted. And they have had about, I think they're on their fourth president since then.
Remember the movie, Year of Living
The Year of Living
That was
Dangerously.
started.
Yeah, that was the year when the revolution occurred. Yeah. What did you know about Indonesia before reading the article? Nothing. What did you know?
I have impressions from Somerset Maugham, short stories, and Maugham spent a lot of time going around from island to island and stuff. Enchanting, that life.
Mhm.
Steamers, traveling in a settlement, staying over for a week or two, moving on.
So what was your impression of Indonesia based upon Mom's works?
The colonial society that
Okay? So, colonial, controlled by the Dutch. What else did you know?
I watched this great documentary. Several called the act killing, and it was how they just killed the convict. So they had to get rid of the convict. It was just a spot,
Mhm.
and it was unbelievable. Of course, blood. I mean, world history.
So there is a bloody history in the country if you consider the communists and the East Timor and the ethnic Chinese. They have conducted, and the Dutch, they have conducted reprisals.
Yeah, I saw a movie, and first time, it was about the Dutch inhabiting Indonesia. How cruel the Dutch were.
of what?
Oh, yeah,
Cruel,
yeah.
cruel. They treated them like slaves.
Mhm.
You know, it was no different than the way we treated our slaves here.
Mhm.
Sure, an anecdote. I heard a talk we said once by a lady who was born in India, the Dutch family. I know two Dutch ladies. One was in Europe during World War II, and she was in Indonesia during World War II. So the first story was a concentration camp. All the Dutch people were held. I think this is probably. I'm thinking. Mountbatten might have been bringing the bricks in when the war ended. I say that because Mountbatten famously got the Chinese or Japanese that were sworn to die before giving up. Those who've been captured actually signed a document changing their loyalty so he could use them as police force. The Japanese were off because they didn't have a lot of British soldiers to go on.
And they were still fighting the war.
Yeah, there were other places. And so this lady talked about the day that the Dutch left. And she said there was a railroad from the concentration camp and they were on their way to the port. And so as they went, every 20 feet or so on either side of the tracks, there was a Japanese soldier with a weapon. And they weren't looking at the train. They were turned around looking to defend the train against indigenous Indonesians. Because they were worried about these people being attacked on the way to the ship. The hate.
True.
Okay.
Unified the country. Made it into so many islands.
Sukarno. Sukarno is the one who finally took over from the Dutch, convinced them to leave. He became the strongman dictator. He united, he did what he could to unite all of the different ethnic groups into one nation. So he created the state of Indonesia.
Given how many ethnic groups
Right.
are there,
highly spread out.
Right. And how spread out it is, the number of islands, the number of ethnic groups on each island, it's incredible.
But you have something happen here, like South Sudan broke off from Sudan. Like Indonesia split into something, what I read is, like 700 languages, all these ethnic groups. And could there be something that splits off? I mean, how do you unify it?
They have done a lot to try and unify it. So I guess that is another question that could be asked. How, I think I even had it down here somewhere. Has Indonesia successfully used its diversity as a strength? Mary Ann?
That kept striking me the whole time I read the essay and after I looked at the map. Because the United States, of course, is famous for incorporating all these different ethnicities and immigrants and on and on and on. But it's a big country, but it's all attached. How do you even manage this with all these islands separated by the ocean water? I just can't imagine that.
Tom?
Majority of the population is on China, right? That's where the majority of resources and power is. So there's not much power or strength. They are united sort of by the town of Muslim. So, there's a Timor, like the others, but.
Which was Christian.
Yeah, but it's, yeah, okay, that's good. What I meant is, what is 17,000 islands, 170,000 islands? Times one or another feels a need to try to split off. But it seems, it's 300 countries. They take pride in that flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Jason?
look at similarly to India, a relatively small number of Buddhist people take over a place where there were 200 or 300 million people, and they have a strong military, and they don't have to take the violence to suppress it. Fine, but they're, you get the message.
Okay. Tim?
There was this new capital still on the island of Java.
From Borneo.
The one that was Java is more than half of the population. Like that. Right. That's good.
They don't like the ethnic Chinese, but they continue to play China against the United States. That's the whole concept of non-alignment. And because of their location, they can do that very well. Larry?
I think actually the initial consolidation was the Dutch.
Yeah.
Sukarno reinforced it with better conditions to continue the work, heavy work, if it's done violently. Like,
A lot of
Mike?
resentment of the Chinese are coming into Indonesia, starting to, getting wealthy. A lot of resentment. And I think that now Indonesia is basically said, let them do it because it's prosperous. It's helping us
Helping
prosper.
us.
Exactly.
So far, it's helping them. Yeah. But there is that dislike of the Chinese. And so there are some actions taken against Chinese businesses. Tom?
well, it's pretty much a significant Chinese population as a component. It's not sure. But that Chinese, that's the model of Malaysia too.
Right.
The Chinese run the business, the Malays run the government, the Indians.
Yeah. Yes.
A question. In geographically, it looks like Malaysia should have been part of Indonesia, but not. And also Papua, it's just a straight line. dividing, what is the history and what is the relationship?
Papua New Guinea was split between the Dutch and the English. And that continued when independence came during the 1940s and 50s and 60s. Papua, the western half of the island was associated with the Dutch Indonesia. The eastern half of the island was associated with the British. So they just kept that.
And what about Malaysia, which kind of lies part of Indonesia?
It's Sarawak.
Yeah.
Again, traditional Sarawak. Sarawak is the northern part of Indonesia, or it's the northern part of Borneo that belongs to Malaysia. And traditionally, it was settled by Malays, and it was under the control of the Malayan British conglomerate. So it stayed with Malaysia. Yeah, it stayed with Malaysia.
Division between Dutch and British
Right,
colonies.
colony, yes. Mhm. And there is also the Kingdom of Brunei, which is controlled by the Sultan of Brunei, which is also in northern Borneo. So on Borneo, you basically have three countries: Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. Very complicated stuff. Yeah. What are my questions again? All right. There are issues, as you can see, with the possibility of democracy backsliding in Indonesia. How possible do you think that is in Indonesia, that they might lose their democracy and go back to a one-person rule?
I'll look at this, but the stronger the economy, the less the strong middle class. Laws prevent businesses. It's on that borderline between when democracy doesn't work and when it can't.
Mhm.
So they continue to grow like that. Now, it's always, I mean, like that.
Yes, it could. But as you said, the strength of the middle class is an indication of how well democracy will function. And there is a strong populist movement, I think the article mentioned, there is a strong populist movement to maintain democracy. Democracy. Do you think the United States should encourage democracy in Indonesia? And if so, how can we do so?
Certainly not like
Granted,
We can buy a lot of their nickel.
okay,
that.
we could, and we do buy a lot of their nickel. The only thing is, they want it processed in their country.
Okay.
Have our industries set up processing plants in Indonesia? Was that, it's a question. Has the United States set up nickel processing plants in Indonesia?
I don't know, but it's more likely other countries. But processing that stuff's very
Okay,
A partnership arrangement to let them mine their minerals and process them.
but have we invested the money so they can build the industry?
What is the deal with, what is the size of nickel?
Has the United States invested the money in Indonesia to help them build nickel processing plants?
I don't think so.
Who has?
Most likely
China.
China.
Is it Chinese?
China's everywhere.
Yeah. So should we start investing more money? Jason, could you take it out?
Well, I can see where,
No, I can't. Okay. Should the where was
well, the only,
I? Should we start investing more money in these countries?
the only way we invest money in these countries, and we support them through the CIA and take over the government to push it toward democracy.
So you're not seeing the United States, even though it might be in our best interest, investing money in places like Indonesia. Okay, Jason.
I do remember the program, the Foreign Overseas Investment Corporation. It's a branch of the State Department. That ensures the investment by American foreign.
Okay.
So I think the risk that we had.
Larry.
Well, you raised an interesting question, and I'll do a parallel with Afghanistan.
Okay.
Because our military guy heading up our forces in Afghanistan had occasion to be with the leading civilian, as corrupt as that might be. They said, I don't really care about your troops being here, I can do without them, I need you to build some factories. That's a point, too. I had a couple of acquaintances, I never quite got a chance to do it, but I said, well, you guys probably benefiting from a lot of things, but you make air conditioning, I would think Afghanistan would be a great place to sell it. I think you ought to build a plant there. And we won't need the military so much. You guys have the guts to go do that.
And what did
I
I
don't
say?
think we got the guts to go do that in a lot of places, but I think Indonesia.
That's a good point. Yes.
That's a question. Who would be responsible for putting up the American government or private industry?
Jason said the government would guarantee private investment.
Used to, I haven't looked at
I don't know if
that, but they do guarantee.
I would think that since we are a capitalist country and we believe in capitalism, private industry would put it up.
Well, I'm just thinking ahead. I'm just trying to think ahead.
Right.
And I hate to bring this into the conversation.
Which part?
I hate to start it, but I'm gonna have to.
Okay.
Private industry, maybe thinking a few months ahead, where they're, with Project 2025 and the possible elimination of the EPA, they may be thinking, let's just hold off, because we may be able to build dirty factories in America, because we won't have the EPA harass anymore, and, well, let's just, hold on.
Okay.
So you're saying it would be, regulations would be much.
Much less. Much less if Trump wins the election.
The way you portrayed the capitalist system last century, the capitalist system is always looking for handouts from the government and deals.
Our
And
capitalist.
so if the government decides that it wants to promote relationships with Indonesia, all the government has to do is find out somebody who runs whatever it is. And and they do cover people. They do cover, industry and stuff like that. It's not, that's not like a pure risk, it's not that that's East Indies company, that's the one guy. Or Good American distribute.
Mike?
I've seen, like, made an example, Middle East, that's oil,
Mhm.
the private industries went in there and they extracted the oil. The country got very little profit. Same thing, the government back, CIA is back.
Fertilizer, they will make the deal with Saudi Arabia, almost. Set up the British Arabian oil company. And,
Either the article or the movie mentioned the Quad Alliance. The alliance between Japan, India, Australia, and the United States. And it pointed out that Indonesia is smack dab in the middle of that Quad Alliance. It would be valuable if we could strengthen ties with Indonesia and move them from non-alignment to alignment. Is there anything that we could do to move that process along?
Do you want,
Please?
do they open to, are they influenced?
Well, that's it. Are they open to influence?
Because, somebody, Sukarno or Sukarno, said, hell with the United States. That was
Well, I think Sukarno said that. Suharto went in and said, let's play both sides against the middle. Tim?
Isn't alignment an obvious concept that really, if you're another country, you're not China, you're not the USA, for big, you're a smaller company, you want to be nominal. I think, we needed alignment when we were trying to stop the spread of communism. And so that was important. And today, it's almost like it's an antiquated concept. We need to figure out how to deal with the non-aligned nations in terms of votes. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point.
Right. When they get the countries, first preference would be non-aligned, United States. The rest of Asia is aligned mostly because of Chinese activities. So right now, Korea, Japan, Malaysia, Vietnam, Australia have all aligned more closely with the United States. And if China's not threatening Indonesia, I see no reason they would find any particular reason to align. If China is, there might be a couple islands that have eyes on them. But it's just far enough, as I said, close to China. It's just far enough away, but I haven't personally heard about China having something.
Okay, Tim?
You asked what the United States could do to help Indonesia. I would think one of the things we could maintain with its Navy is keep the trading lines open. And if China started trying to muscle it, Indonesia's not going to be. So you have that U.S. Navy.
Okay. So you think support for their Navy is a good thing, is a good way?
Well, it's our Navy.
Well, yeah.
Keeping those lines, trade lines open.
Yes, yeah, it is. Should we be helping the Indonesian Navy learn tactics and align with them to help keep these trade lines open?
any influence we can have, any opportunities.
So, yes,
Back in 2004, there was a major earthquake in Indonesia, tsunami. And the countries of the world, for some reason, all there was like this competition to make money to help out Indonesia. Early, China, this 2004, and then Japan would say we can give 100 million. They're all making these promises to contribute millions. The United States is kind of quiet at the time. And I was kind of just watching. But I have to be going over to Asia a lot. And two different people told me the exact same story. That the story was they don't know who made the most money, but they know for an absolute fact that there's United States aircraft carrier there that sent helicopters and generators and stuff to the affected islands. So for two different people, it was kind of important. I don't know who made to do the most money, but I tell you who was first helped us was United States. And that's the kind of thing people have memories about. Exactly. Right. So you specifically asked about the Navy. That was something the U.S. Navy did. That was a very, I think we received it. Received it positive.
Just out of curiosity, wonder what's the population of the aligned countries there? Yeah,
India is the most populous country in the world right now.
right, yes, would that be part of this alignment?
The Quad, yes, the Quad includes India, doesn't it? Japan, India, Australia, the United States.
This makes it more valuable for Indonesia to get itself aligned with Quad, population and the opportunity for economics, trading with one another and so forth. I was just listening to a radio this evening, how important it is for example, NATO, to all the countries now, the fact that the United States represent 50% of the world's economy. 25% can make it for outside the United States, and 25% of the United States combined make 50% of the world's economy. That would be significant. Indonesia become aligned with this kind of opportunity to grow.
I don't know if this is a good idea or not. A bit of consideration along the lines of, well, even the carriers, helicopters were coming to aid right away. You know, we ruminate over Cameron Bay being a U.S. naval base during Vietnam. And then the Russian, the Chinese, all that. We lost bases in the Philippines, partially because of an earthquake, as it turns out. Being disinvited by the country was trying to establish a naval base there. I heard, but I don't know the status, which really works out. We can talk to them about U.S. operating some basically leasing base for the patrolling of the shipping lanes and et cetera. That would be something to discuss with them if they ever. Just a good idea. That's a good idea.
Spend a lot of money and, give a lot of money, a lot of incentive to allow it. Yeah.
Larry would know it. He keeps up on those things.
You never get rid of that.
No. Any military guy, it's hard to get rid of the military in the background.
But if the United States opens the military base, and if that base will be targeted all the way to
China would freeze that.
it would just be a huge attraction. And then they'd have to defend the base. Control the water, they have to defend it.
You're absolutely right. The alternative is we bring back every place we have overseas. I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, big flat.
What we bring back.
If we withdrew, I don't know if that would help or hurt stability of the world. We do everything we have overseas, brought it home. What happens then?
Well, we might find out.
That's a subject we don't understand.
Yeah, you're right. We'll find out.
Election keeps coming up.
Yeah.
It does for some
For
reason.
some reason, it's fine. I was gonna put a doomsday clock up on my,
But yeah,
So did
someone
Donald Trump know
brought
what
up the issue
Indonesia-
of the election and holding off on making decisions about economic, was that you, Ken? Yeah, making economic, investments, wait until after the election to see if we can, get rid of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and start polluting our air and water
the
again.
State Department?
I'm running out of questions here, folks. Yes,
I'd like to bring up one of the questions that was at the end of the chapter. Since Obama lived in Indonesia and said, do you think his personal style was affected by that? Because the way they described it, in the Oval Office, he was more of the quiet listener than the authority figure that a lot of people expect the president to be.
And outside, no drama, Obama, remember that, right?
No drama, Obama.
Outside the Oval Office.
That's what
I think that's just a person.
Fiona Hill said, Trump never was.
You get what?
Never listened to
never
anybody.
listened to anybody.
Has nothing, has no interest in what other people say.
Well, that's true. That's
He
what
just
the person said.
Surrounded by great advisors
What's that? Surrounded by great advisors.
and winging it and not, never.
I think who he surrounds himself with is part of the problem. I do
Yeah.
think they affected him, including when they had a little bit of common sense and held it back a little bit. That was first.
I like Fiona Hill.
Not
I just would like to.
So
Okay.
Timor was trying to assert independence, was that why they crushed it?
That's why they tried to crush them. East Timor is Christian,
Yeah.
and they wanted to go their own way.
Yeah.
And
Portugal pulled out.
Portugal pulled out. Again, this was a different colonial power that controlled East Timor. And the Indonesians wanted to unite East Timor with the rest of Indonesia to keep that total arc. We control everything between halfway through New Guinea and all the way over to the end of Sumatra. So that's why they wanted it, and the East Timors wanted nothing to do with it. Indonesia went in, crushed, tried to keep it over, and the United States supported that until Indonesia needed money as a result of an economic depression in the 1990s. And we said, if you want money from us, give East Timor its freedom. And that's when East Timor got its freedom in order for Indonesia to get this money.
So Timor is now independent.
Yeah.
Yes, has been since 2005.
Yeah.
Victoria.
Is anything known about pre-colonial history and culture of Indonesia? Because I'm absolutely blank now.
I'm sure there is information out there.
They do the shadow puppets.
It could be. You would have to do, I myself do not know much about the history of Indonesia prior to 1945, except that it was controlled by the Dutch, and they weren't nice people.
They didn't even have unifying, it says in the org.
Yeah, they
Until
didn't
the
try to
1920s,
unify.
nationalist leaders, they just began to see themselves as a unit.
As a unit. Yeah, they controlled them as individual islands. So they pretty much allowed, they would push Christianity, especially the Dutch form of Christianity. They had trade people in all of the colonies, and they had military control in all of the islands. before the Dutch came in the 1600s, each of the islands was separate, independent, and they had their own trade with other countries in the region. Indonesia was known particularly for its spices. The Spice Islands are two islands that were two tiny, actually, they were two tiny islands, specifically between two larger ones, I think between Celebes and Borneo, but I'm not sure. So I know they were already Islamic because the Islamic traders had come across the Indian Ocean. And they were part of a huge trade network, but each island developed its own spices and developed its own fabrics and dyes and whatever, and sold them throughout the region. But I'm sure there are books that could give you more information than that. Yeah.
That's one thing that just picking up from that. You know, I was looking at suggested readings, because I was thinking there's gotta be more to be picked up, easy reading. You know, what do they call it? Kind of books, you go to the bookstore, it looks like it'd be fun to read or interesting. And I'm seeing all this stuff, everything here in the suggested readings looks a little high tone. I don't know if it covers what you talked about, or what you see. Cornell University Press, Stanford University Press, Princeton University Presses. I think I'm expecting that's gonna be a really dry.
There's one W.W. Norton.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit of a dry publisher too, I think, but that would be a place to go first.
Yes.
Not sure what kind of food you eat. I just very,
Somewhat spicy.
what?
Somewhat spicy.
Did you use rice or millet or?
I would say they use rice because this is a rice growing region. It's tropical.
Okay, and, what can you do? Pork, goat, beef?
Not pork,
No, not pork.
I'm trying to narrow it down.
No, not pork.
in Bali, maybe, I don't know about the.
Fish?
They would have a lot of fish.
Yeah.
And there might, since they use water buffalo to farm and to plow the fields, I would say they might have some version of beef from the water buffalo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Indonesian restaurants.
None at all. I mean, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because no matter where you go, there's no issue.
Again, you go online, it can provide you Indonesian cuisine. What are the and you'll get the characteristics. Tim.
Nasi goreng is the national dish of Indonesia. A super simple, sticky fried rice dish, typically served with meat, vegetables, and a fried egg on top. It's outstandingly delicious, with everything you could ever want from a fried rice dish.
Okay.
Not wrong.
So that means they also have some kind of chicken.
Yeah, I think that was.
You know, Somerset Maugham, he traveled all the islands to the Pacific.
He was kind of a asset.
Right, so Tahiti to on West.
I don't know, but
I'm reading a book
every one of his stories is set in a different island.
I'm reading a book recently. Don't be surprised to find dog.
What?
Dog.
Dog, yeah.
Which are a lot of the Pacific islands keep popping up.
Mhm.
Trying to source.
In Vietnam, big
Yeah.
time.
Tasty.
Tastes like chicken.
You're in the valley, what you eat in Valley?
Dog.
Sometimes you
remember.
don't ask.
I'm sure it was westernized a lot.
Valley's
When you travel, don't ask.
Yeah.
don't ask.
Don't ask what you're eating.
If you go to Peru, guinea pig is popular.
Guinea pig in Peru is a delicacy.
Right, it's like rapid stuff, but
Yeah.
what film about the Fort Point, or what was that, Flint, Michigan? Somebody had Roger and me was the booth,
Okay,
as I recall. And, the lady was selling rabbits, have some
Uh-huh.
food.
yeah.
Rabbits.
I've had bunny.
Whatever you want.
Bunny is good.
Yeah.
My uncle farmed. And if you don't kill the rabbits in the fall, they reproduce over winter and they will eat your crops.
Really?
Truly. So every fall, my uncles went out and killed rabbits. And we got some of them because Uncle Ed lived by himself. We got half the rabbits he killed if Mom would just clean them. So she cleaned the rabbits. She wouldn't let me down in the basement for some reason when she did that. But she cleaned the rabbits. We got half the harvest and Uncle Ed took the rest. And yeah, we ate bunny. Bunny is good. You can go to Greenville and what is it, Union City? You can find rabbit on the menu because there are bunny farms.
Rabbits are good, and then your train used to go to the meat market, to this to my house, something years ago. Tell a bunny, it has a fat, so you know.
Ah,
Oh.
okay,
Wow.
okay.
I bet you
Yeah.
also
It's
ate
a
Bambi.
Yeah.
You probably also ate Bambi.
Of course I ate Bambi.
I didn't say Bambi.
I used to hunt rabbits.
I'm gonna
What's
bring
wrong
this
with
full
that?
circle.
What? I ate Bambi. What's the problem with Bambi? I've also had Bullwinkle.
Oh, yeah, everybody's.
Hey,
Of
when I,
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have.
Okay, we're kind of getting off the topic
Why? Because
here.
that's where you want to go.
You were ready for us to take over.
Sam,
You wanna be serious?
This is further Taste Atlas. Obviously, on the internet, so it's real good. Rated Indonesian cuisine as the sixth best cuisine in the world, behind Italian, Japanese, Greek, Portuguese, and Chinese.
wow.
Do they drink out beer or wine?
Oh, I'm sure they do. Every
Or
society
is it
has,
off of style?
every society and, yeah, every society has its own alcoholic beverage. Let's face it, and I don't care what religion you are. The United States tried to go non-alcoholic in the 1920s. We know how successful that was. So I am sure there is an alcoholic beverage there.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
You can find it in Emirates too. Yeah, it's not that hard. I'm gonna bring this full circle. I went to a presentation about Coney Island a couple days ago. Kings Island is basically a new Coney Island. Coney Island was obviously renamed to Coney Island in New York. Okay. And that one time was a Dutch area. The reason they called it Coney Island, that was the neighborhood that they used to pick their site for the amusement park. Coney was the Dutch name for rabbit. So when you order a Coney,
With
Okay,
everything?
getting back to the topic.
What?
There is one issue that came up. As Indonesia threads the needle between the U.S. and Chinese plays for influence in Southeast Asia, what elements of Indonesian foreign policy and leadership in ASEAN seem to be particularly important in the current day? What surprised me is that Indonesia seems to be a very quiet leader.
On the world front, in the world.
Well, in the area, in the Southeast Asia, East Asia, or Southeast Asia, South Asia area. So what elements in Indonesian foreign policy seem to be particularly important in the current day? How are they showing their leadership? Leadership. Tom,
They haven't joined
okay.
state.
Okay, and BRIC is Brazil, India,
Russia, India, China,
maybe show
and a
India.
bunch of them, Iran, South.
Okay. Alright. So it's kept its independence from that particular organization. Right? What else? What else do they show?
That whole idea of being non-aligned. Because there used to be in the Cold War, you had the USSR and had the United States and other countries almost had to take a state in one or the other. But now I think a country like this that's strategically important and they want to be non-aligned, we don't want to get too close to either side.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good idea.
Like,
I think what we're finding is because of its location, Indonesia is going to be an important player. And we don't hear much about it, but it's an important country to be aware of in terms of what's happening there. Even though we have not been aware of it in the past, I think what this article brought out is through quiet leadership, they are taking a position in the area that could broker something between the United States and China if it had to. It is trying to maintain it has so far tried to maintain a democracy, tried to help it grow. We could be seeing some changes, but the people themselves tend to like that concept of that Tom brought up, that a concept of democracy, but also being non-aligned. And the middle class, as it continues to grow, will keep it headed toward democracy. Yes, Jason. Keep going.
So, we have to always remember that what we think about them is not what they, we have to spend more time understanding how they think.
How they think.
And that's the real, the key, the misperception of the we may seeing things through our eyes. How all this stuff, and that's you gotta
Something here, I was thinking, like just driving up and a little bit. Look at the history of the other Asian countries. When it came to becoming a major economic power, right? Korea, Taiwan, and I think they had totalitarian government, not democracy.
Yeah.
And I think, that's true of Indonesia for the first 2 thirds. Is Malaysia going to have an economic spurt with its government? I find that hard to believe. But what are we looking at here? Is a role model, not democracy, but something else?
Malaysia, majority what?
Melee.
Malay. So the
I meant to
the
say
Chinese
Myanmar.
that went to
You meant to
Singapore,
say Myanmar,
Yeah,
not Malaysia, Myanmar.
my fault.
He changed. Yeah.
But good.
He had a Trump or a Biden moment right there.
That's right.
Okay.
But I will not say.
Myanmar.
I'm glad.
is About,
Burma.
well, that's a totally other.
That's
Yeah, that's,
I-
okay. So quiet leadership sometimes can be more important than blustering. So yeah, Tom.
Very makes an interesting point. Most of the Asian economies that have grown rapidly.
Also,
And
they
if
were under
you-
pressure. Extreme severe pressure. Korea and Taiwan, and they had stuff going on outside, the pressure coming from the outside. So, they think it's warm at the top.
So do you think the United States was an exception to the rule? In the respect of not being a dictatorship before we became a prosperous country?
We were under the king.
Well, we were under a king, but were we prosperous under the king?
You know, on page 66, there was one thing that I thought was the best part about it, is when they were talking about the reputation of Indonesia. You know, the fact that, it all depended on the economy. And they were democracy, thriving, and so that kind of shapes your viewpoint on which direction you want to go. And that's a lesson that I think that we may have to be faced with to appreciate what we have.
Oh, okay.
You know, a little bit of a side comment. I think they said in here that Indonesia voted on the west side in the Middle East
On several issues.
for the most part.
Except the Palestine.
Yes,
Now, that's,
You know, there are a lot of exceptions there.
I don't want to go there. Jim?
One of the things that mentioned that lady Marsudi, who spoke at the UN, talked a lot about women's rights. And I thought, you know, human rights, I thought that was a pretty progressive statement to make, and something that was important to the issue. I mean, that,
It does. And notice she mentioned the textiles. Remember that textiles are usually made by women. And she spent a lot of time mentioning how everyone in her group had a textile from a different cultural group within the island nation.
You also mentioned
Yes.
semiconductor.
I saw that, it was somewhat in conflict with the reputation for supporting extremist Islamic elements.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my thought is, what happens if a really strong Islamic leader, like someone like the Ayatollah of Iran,
Mhm.
how's that gonna affect?
That's a good question. Do you think the role of the middle class will take over at this point? And especially the women who are part of that middle class to keep the radical elements out of power? One thing that I cover in my geography class is a comparison of women in Afghanistan with women in Indonesia. They had about the same percentage of the population, women. Women in Indonesia have like an 84% literacy rate. Women in Afghanistan have about I don't know, I think it might be in the teens literacy rate because the Taliban doesn't believe in educating women. And if you look at the economy of both countries, the economy in Indonesia is much better off than the economy in Afghanistan.
I'm sure very diverse Muslim countries are.
They're very diverse.
Strand. I think
Yeah.
it's mainly Sunni, but I'm sure. They say it's Sunni.
And a lot of this is interpretation of the Quran. Because in the Quran, women's equality is mentioned. It is said women and equal are men before God. And there are some countries who are really starting to push that. Some Islamic countries that are really starting to push that. I mean, women now have the right to drive a car in Saudi Arabia. Before they had to have a man with them to drive a car. So yeah, we're getting, Islam is going, I think Islam is going to be facing a crossroads eventually between these extremists who want to go back to
Yeah. The Baha'i.
tribal economy and tribal life, and those who want to exist with the reality in the present world. Well, many countries, even, this is true. This is true. I am, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, final comments. Final comments. What are your final issues, thoughts, positions, beliefs, whatever? Val, we'll start with you.
Now.
You got 2 minutes.
Well, it was interesting. I appreciated getting to know everything together because I wasn't on my staff. So yeah, I thought it was very interesting, very enlightening, and I love the discussion.
Okay, even though it wasn't as well organized as it should.
Oh, that's okay. I always like that part.
Victoria.
As well, fascinated to know more about it, and honestly, I never thought about it much. It's a big blank void, so it showed me my own ignorance, which is very important.
Okay,
I
Yeah.
know in the comments of those students, like, these, I knew it was the fourth largest country in the population. That was about,
I didn't know anything, I mean, these articles are always so good, so raise a lot of questions, a lot of good information. You know, I guess the basic principle I think is, we should have influence wherever we can. You know, I've become more like, the United States is a good influence around the world for the most part. And if you're not the hegemon, somebody else will be, you know, it'll be China or, well,
Jason?
My conclusion is, let me explain the, I'd love to go there, but I would love, it sounds incredibly fascinating place, in different cultures, yeah, I'm very interested, I'm very curious. And now, when we're for
Okay,
thank you.
Tom?
well, as a coffee drinker, any country whose largest island is called Java, especially if it's I think it's critical for the interest of the
yes,
relation. And I kind of think the United States best role, if Indonesia wants to remain non-aligned, or two, the United States is non-aligned, up until World War II. I would say just to support that with a quiet diplomacy of cooperation, they can be a visible country and we can be invisible cooperation.
Okay. Marianne?
One point that nobody's brought up yet, is I think the reason we know so little about Indonesia, even our cuisine, is it mentioned in the book, not that many immigrants from that area have come to the United States.
Good point.
Vietnam, China, look at almost any place around the world, they're here. I've never met anyone from Indonesia.
That's a good point. That says something about the country and its success, that they don't want to leave.
Exactly, and family life on those islands is very self-indulgent and self-supportive.
Mhm.
You know, and yet I run into a woman on my walk and I talked to her. Asia. She's of Chinese nationality and she's Christian and she's Catholic. And she came over here because they were, going against Catholics. So she came like 30 years ago or something. Her brother came, but interestingly, her mother stayed in Indonesia. She's the only Indonesian person.
But that says something, that it was religious persecution.
Yeah.
Ken?
Yeah, I agree with most of everybody else's comments here. I didn't know much about Indonesia, didn't hear much about Indonesia. And I agree with Tom's comment, let them keep their quiet ways of, let's support them and quietly support them and, let them do their thing and let's quietly support them do their thing.
Okay. Lauren?
I can only point out about two people. And one of them is, long time ago, that the reason they come to America, sometimes people come to America because of the great, conflict within their own country.
Yeah.
They did have a big shift, you
Mhm.
know, that economy was on. In fact, the one guy I met came to America for that town, because they were Chicago people. Chicago came in. Not that much happened though, along those lines. You know, they killed 1 million communists, but other than that, it was okay. So, the thing, I found it almost, I don't read much fiction, I found it almost like a thriller or something, watching how this went. This was a lot better than most of the dryness for me, some of the other ones, because of that story. And then, the other thing that impressed me, you know, you ever heard of, all heard of the, Holy Roman Empire?
Yeah,
It wasn't holy, it wasn't Roman, it wasn't an empire.
right.
Well, I was reading this stuff, like they were saying, one archipelago, one people. No, it isn't. One language, hardly. But affirmations do have some effect. You keep telling yourself what you want to be true, even though it's obviously not, they do have more power than I would expect. Similar.
Mhm.
A couple things, we never discussed all the different languages they had, and years ago, they decided to consolidate to one language, so they could communicate better. That's one thing they did, so they were pretty smart on that.
Yeah, that is something that a country needs to do is have.
Right. And I did know, some Indonesians, in fact, one of them, was married to a doctor, and he was, Dutch, and he brought her from Indonesia, United States, and he was head of one of the medical facilities here. I think it was, maybe the hospice down in Wilmington or something like that. And we were invited to his home, and she made Indonesian food, and it was to die for. I remember that.
Yeah.
My wife's ex-father-in-law came from Indonesia. He was Dutch, and he was captured he was in the military there, and he was captured during the Japanese War. And he came and he raised a very nice family there. And so I got to know that part of it. And it was very educational from the standpoint, I never knew they were the fourth largest population. The language, I think, is something most areas should do, even here in the United States. But I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Well, again, what surprised me most in reading the article was the quiet leadership aspect. The way they are making contact through ASEAN with all of the nations in Southeast Asia. And the concept of non-alignment, I think, as Tom and others have said, this is an important thing that they should be allowed to continue with the quiet help of the United States, like providing them with relief after a bad earthquake, tsunami. We don't always have to, some countries are always out there beating their own drum. We aren't always out there beating our own drum, but we are there. And it is important for us to be there. And I think that's important to remember, considering what's coming up. And how that possibility.
One more question there. In terms of the migration stuff, that's usually driven by violence and climate change.
Mhm.
Any climate change issues?
Well, I think the issue of
The water.
the water. Yeah, the flooding in Jakarta, which is forcing them
Right.
to, which has urged them to move their capital someplace else. And Borneo is an interesting choice. It puts it more centrally, if you take a look at the map, on, eastern Borneo. It will be more centrally located rather than, where it is currently. So I am considering that Borneo is not that populous. I wonder if that influenced their decision to go to Borneo. The concept that it's on a major strait. Strait, yeah. It's going to be not too far from Balikpapan, which is the capital of the Borneo section of Indonesia. So I just thought that was an interesting choice. More centrally located, possibly easier to reach, probably a little bit farther inland, so that the sea won't put it under. But yeah, all island nations are concerned about the melting of the ice cap and the glaciers and so forth. So how high the silts are that you use. If you're close to a coastline, you're in serious trouble. I'm sorry.
We'll be buying any, oceanfront property.
Yeah, I won't be buying any oceanfront property. Thank you, folks. Have a good day.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.